such a great song.
Such a good song.
Gotta love Willow Smith. She's just amazing. That whole family is just amazing.
They really are.
They really are. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining. I'm Dr. Trish Rampersad, the core behavioral psychologist. And today we have Jose Andres Camacho. He's the founder of Rise Creative Consulting and social media manager for Oracle Advertising and CX. He has over 5 years of experience in social media marketing and executive ghostwriting for B2B and B2C Fortune 500 brands. He is also a contributor to brand storytelling called Put Customers at the Heart of Your Brand Story by Miri Rodriguez. You can also follow Jose on Twitter at the Jose Camacho and follow him on LinkedIn as well. Welcome, Jose. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, Trish. It's such a pleasure to be on.
I'm so happy to have you. Me and Jose know each other from a previous church we used to attend. And and Jose was really kind. My aunt passed away, unfortunately, due to COVID and cancer and stuff. And that was Auntie Vida. And Jose was in Florida, and he was kind enough to come to the hospital to pray with my family and over her. So thank you so much, Jose. I appreciate it.
You're totally welcome. It's my pleasure.
Yeah, thank you. So we're going to get right to it. Why don't you tell us where you're from?
Yeah, so I'm originally from South Florida. Actually, that's where I'm at now. I'm in a small beach town called Deerfield Beach. And I actually grew up 20 minutes from here in a suburb called Coral Springs, Florida. And I guess the short of it is I'm the firstborn of 3 kids from 2 immigrant parents. My parents are originally my mom is from Venezuela, and my dad is from Costa Rica. And they immigrated to the US in the 80s and basically met in Miami, and they got married. Long story short, they moved to California for work, and then they had me. I was born in California, in Southern California. And then before I turned 1, I moved down to South Florida where I was raised. And then my parents had my siblings, and I basically was there for most of my young childhood life and adult life up until recently. The only time I moved away from from Florida, is when I moved to Washington, D.C. For a semester to do an unpaid internship at the Congressional Hispanic Caucus Institute as a marketing communications intern. And I was part of a program there called the Washington Center. It's a great program, highly recommend it. It changed my life. And it's basically a nonprofit that gets students from all over the world, some of the best students from all over the world as well, and place them in internships where they would live and work in DC. And isn't that great? Yeah, it's a great program.
I never heard, I haven't heard of that program. That's awesome.
It's a great program. I highly recommend it. I have a lot of good friends that I made there, and some people on the faculty on there as well. So when I finished that program, it was a semester long. I came back and finished school. I was in my senior year at Florida International University, Miami, and I was majoring in international relations and national security studies. And my original plan was actually to go work for the intelligence community. I was really interested in the CIA, DIA, and just different agencies in the intelligence community, and was looking at the State Department, which is part of the reason I wanted to move to DC and live there for a little bit, just to get a feel for it. And I did get to tour the White House and the State Department, all that stuff. And I guess the part of my story where things changed for me was in my senior year. I was already speaking with recruiters from the CIA. I had kind of developed a networking relationship with them. They were coming down to FIU and trying to recruit students to apply.
Right.
And I was one of the students that they were meeting with regularly. And basically in my senior year of college, I had one more meeting with them, and they were like, "What are you waiting for? Go ahead and apply." And so I applied, and didn't hear back for months. It was going to be like a year-long process, but I wasn't expecting much of it. And then during that summer of that year, I had met a really good family friend and mentor of mine that's still a close mentor of mine today. And she had basically said, she would be happy to mentor me and coach me in my career. And so meanwhile, she didn't know that I had already applied for the CIA. It was supposed to be kind of a secret to keep between your close friends and family,
Right.
due to the nature of the job. And the CIA got back to me
Yeah.
and they said they wanted to interview me. So I thought, why not tap into this resource I have, who is willing to coach me in her career. She's had a very successful career herself.
Right.
And she offered to connect me with someone in her network that was an ex-KGB spy turned
Oh, wow.
US citizen. Yeah, he has a crazy story. His name is Jack Barsky. He's a published author. He's a
Mhm.
counterintelligence analyst for major news publications like MSNBC and CNN, and he's written his own book called Deep Undercover. It's basically about his life as a covert Soviet spy in the 80s, and basically was recruited by the KGB, which is the Russian Soviet counterpart to the CIA. And they basically recruited him because he was a very intelligent and successful biochemist, and he liked the adventure of the job and the kind of the status that comes with it. And he was kind of thrown into living this double life with his mission and his assignment overseas.
Right.
And he basically came to the US in the 80s and started over again in New York. He basically just got an apartment, got fake documents, got a library card. And he tells the story in his book about how he basically, after years of kind of lying to everybody, he eventually wanted to stay in the US. And the Russians were telling him to come back at some point because his cover was, they had reason to be known that his cover might have been blown. And so,
Whoa, holy crap. This is amazing. I was not
yeah,
expecting this.
yes,
So
it's a
good.
really good story, and it's going to tie back into my
Right. I
story.
can't, I want to hear. This is like intriguing.
So he basically wanted to stay in the US. He liked his life in the US. He didn't see a reason to go back to, um, now at the time it was Russia, or before at the time it was East Germany, but then the Berlin Wall fell and then they were telling him to come back to Russia. So
Mhm.
he made up some story about him having AIDS, because at the time the treatment for AIDS was very little, didn't have much. And Russians they didn't know how to deal with it. They were definitely afraid of AIDS at the time. So they were just like, okay, you stay there, get your treatments, and just lay low. And so he tried to lay low for many years and had a family. And he didn't realize at the time that the FBI was really onto him. They went as far as moving into the house next door to him with the male-female agent to make
Right.
it seem like they were a couple, and spying on him from like the house next door for months. And they eventually arrested him. And he actually got off pretty easy because he was very compliant. He actually was very he worked very well with them to give him a lot of information that they needed, the FBI needed, to understand how the Soviet spies work, how their program works, who are the type of people they want to recruit. And
Mhm.
so because of that, they didn't promise that they would do this, but they eventually, or they didn't guarantee this, but they eventually gave him U.S. citizenship. They gave him a path to get U.S. citizenship and let him keep his alias, his name, his fake name called Jack Barsky, because he had been using it for so long, and
Mhm.
they had to give him real documents. His real name was like Ilya Vekchev or something from East Germany.
Mhm.
And anyways, long story short, he got U.S. citizenship. He became a Christian. He actually gave his life to Christ, which is really, really cool.
Amazing.
And he wrote a book about his experience. And Miri, this mentor I was mentioning before,
Yep.
she was helping him promote his new book in terms of by refining his personal brand. And so because Jack was a client of Miri's, she was gracious enough to connect me with Jack, and I had like a 30-minute phone call with Jack,
That's
and that
amazing.
phone call changed my life. What was that?
That's amazing. Holy
I
crap.
know, it is
You never know
amazing.
what connections can, like, who God brings in your life through other people, and through your mentor. So yeah,
Yeah.
continue.
Yeah.
So
So um that, I mean, like I said earlier, that 30-minute phone call changed my life. We spoke on the phone, and he effectively talked me out of joining the CIA because of how much lying I would need to do to people. Like I'd be lying to myself, I'd be lying to my own family, I'd be lying to everyone about what I do for work. And that was something I've already considered going into it, but there was something different in what he in his lived experience and how he talked about it from like a regretful point of view, and how it kind of brought a little bit of a misery and regret to his life. Um, he basically said he doesn't recommend it, and I took that recommendation to heart. I think I was like laughing nervously during the
Right.
phone call because this is kind of what I do when I'm uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And he was like, "This is, this is not a laughing matter. I'm actually quite serious. Like, I don't recommend this for you, and I hope you consider it." And so I got off the phone with him. I said, "Thank you so much for your time, Jack. Appreciate you." Got off the phone, called Miri up, and said, "Hey, I don't think I want to do this anymore." And she's like, what happened? Like, tell me about the phone call. Tell me why. And I basically told her how the call went. And I said, look, I had a very clear, like, logical conversation in my head. I was like, if I play the tape to the end in terms of what my career path can look like with the CIA, or what could happen if I decide to go down this route, I just know deep down inside that I'm going to be forced to, at one point or another, whether it's 20 years in my career or 5 years on in my career or a year into it, I might be forced to choose between serving my country in this way through their intelligence apparatus, or serving what I believe would be my God in the way that he would want me to live my life. And I didn't want to be put in that position. I think in some ways people were put in that position in smaller, much smaller, more kind of insignificant ways
Right.
every day. But this is a big thing where it could affect like my soul, my family, my relationships. And it wasn't worth the adventure and the risk reward. It wasn't worth it for me. As much as a young 20, early 20 something year old would want that kind of level of responsibility and adventure, it seemed intriguing to me at the time. If I used a little bit of wisdom, I just wouldn't like what position I may just be put in the future, and that wasn't enough. That wasn't worth it for me. So she's like, okay, well, what do you want to do now? And I said, I think I want to go into tech. And she's like, okay, well, why do you want to go into tech? And I was like, tech is an industry that is only growing right now, and its platform is not going anywhere anytime soon. And that level of responsibility is similar or more important than, in my opinion, than the spy craft for the United States. And the reason I think that is because tech is the new, like, cyber warfare, like digital spying, all that stuff is like, it's huge right now, and it's not going to go away. And so my thinking is, I want to get into this industry because it has the same level or even bigger level of responsibility than what I thought spying or the intelligence community had originally. So, and now that's I say that with a grain of salt, because I obviously haven't been in a career with the CIA or any intelligence community, but I just have enough wisdom to know that, like, okay, well, tech is not going anywhere anytime soon, and its level of responsibility, the impact it has on our lives, the level of impact it has on our daily lives is incredible. So she's like, all right, well, let's get you into tech. Let's get you into tech. And so we spent the next 5 months or so just kind of revamping my resume, just completely rebranding myself in terms of how I was originally positioning myself when I was interviewing with folks, and basically where I am today. It's so funny to see where I am today, because it would just start with an idea of like, okay, let's just go into tech. And it seems like it's so like happenstance, but it was very intentional in terms of how I worked with different mentors to completely rebrand myself. And within 5 months, I had an interview I was interviewing with different tech companies, but I got an opportunity with Adobe. And within 5 months, I was picking up my stuff and packing up and moving from South Florida to San Jose, California, where Adobe's headquarters were. And I spent 2 years, my first 2 years of my career there, establishing myself in tech, and it kind of just led to where I am today. Now, the rest is sort of history.
That's an amazing story, Jose. First of all, you said no to the CIA because you didn't want to compromise your soul and
Yeah.
all the lying as a Christian you would have to do. And then it just geared you towards tech, but it's not like tech fell into your lap, you know?
Yeah, it's exactly that. It
Yeah.
was, so it seems like looking forward, it could be like it kind of happened by accident, but I don't see it that way. I see it as it's almost very intentional how all this stuff, it kind of guided me in the right direction.
Yes. And I liked what you said too about you were intentional about finding a mentor.
Hmm.
Can you say more about that? Because there's some listeners, I'm sure, who want to get into tech. And
Hmm.
I know some people want mentors and ask around for mentors. How would you go about finding the right mentor for yourself?
Yeah. So I guess that brings me back to Washington, D.C. And I would say that experience in Washington, D.C., not just because I was working, but because of the skills I learned, the soft skills that I learned there,
Yeah.
changed my life. I would say that was more important to me than my 4-year education. And
Yeah.
here's why.
Mhm.
Um, Part of the responsibilities that we had classes that we need to take while we were there. We weren't just working and going back
Right.
to our apartments or dorms. We had like a academic class that we would take, and then we would take like a leadership type of course where they would assign us kind of internship projects and different they would give us like tours to different parts of the city. Different We get access to museums or organizations that like are nonprofits there, non-government NGOs that are there in DC that we wouldn't otherwise get access to and get tours to. And so one of the assignments that we had for that class was conducting it during our semester long there. We had to conduct 2 informational interviews in the city, and it can't be with anyone within your immediate network. It can't be someone who you work with. It can't be like anyone in your company. It has to be someone outside your network that you didn't know already.
Right.
You can ask people in your network who are right now who they would recommend you speaking to, but you have to go out there and basically get 30 minutes of their time if they would be willing to share it. Take them out for coffee, and ask them about their career. Kind of like how you're asking me about
Right.
my story. I'm
Yep.
asking them for their story and how did they get to be where they are now. And you'd be surprised how many people are willing to share their insights, because in some ways, depending on who you ask, they kind of arrived to where they wanted to be.
Right.
And maybe they don't see it that way, but for someone who was like in college, is like, oh my gosh, you're like 20 years into your career and you work in the White House. Like, how did you do that?
Mhm.
And so that's exactly what I did. I had an informational interview with the policy advisor to the administrator of FEMA. So he's like the second in command almost. He advises the head of FEMA. And it was just supposed to be a like 5 to 15-minute conversation. And we ended up speaking for like an hour, just after hours in the
Oh,
lobby of.
sorry, that's my dog, guys.
That's
I'm not
fine.
editing that because it's always good. Go ahead.
um,
So he ended up
so yeah, we ended up meeting and speaking for like an hour after office
right.
hours in the lobby of FEMA in Washington, D.C. Um, and that was really cool. He spoke about leadership and kind of like what his philosophy is on it, and we had a lot of similar um, like leadership philosophies already. But that one conversation was great. And then the second one I got through like an aunt who used to live and work in DC has her best friend who still works for the NIH. And I asked her best friend, hey, who do you recommend I interview? And she's like, let me see if we can get you this person. And she got me basically a 30-minute coffee chat with at the time it was the project lead, the project and program lead for the Precision Medicine Initiative at the Barack Obama White House. And so um, we
Oh my
we
gosh,
got
that's so
coffee at
amazing.
Pete's Coffee across the street from the White House, like on 11 o'clock on a Tuesday. And it was just that kind of experience as someone who's still in college, who
Yeah.
like it just, you seem like you're like, who am I to get these people to give 30 minutes of the time from, to glean insights from. They
Right.
were willing to do this to me because they saw a genuine want to learn from these folks. And so I say that those stories because the way I found all my mentors including Miri, is applying that same thinking, those same learnings from DC to South Florida. And when I moved back, that's how I met Miri. Miri was announcing at the time she was getting promoted with Microsoft, and she was moving out to their headquarters in Washington. She was moving across the country with her family, and I wanted to catch her basically before she left. We never really had like any sort of like a friend relationship before that. We just knew each other's acquaintances, but people were congratulating her on her LinkedIn post, and I was congratulating her too. And I said, hey, we'd love to learn more about your story, how you basically got to this promotion. Would you be up for like coffee sometime soon or something? And she said she DM'd me and she messaged me, and we made it happen. But that's just one story, but that happens every day for people who ask for it. And so for your listeners who are looking for new mentors, you have to ask for one-on-one time. You also have to come prepared. Before meeting Jack, or before the phone call with Jack, I had read his book as prep work beforehand. Like I didn't want to come like asking him the basic questions about, oh, tell me about your CIA story. I already knew his story. I already knew what he's been through. I wanted to learn deeper insights about, okay, he's telling me now he doesn't recommend this. Why does he not recommend this? I know his story. I know what he's been through. But given all that, what's the deeper driving factor? What's the deeper regret? What's the deeper learning that he has that I wouldn't have because I didn't live his life? And that can apply to anyone.
That's so good. So I love that story. So you learned a lot of soft skills from the position in Washington, D.C., and also get to know people's backgrounds before you meet with them. And it's
Yes,
because
I'm
it
prepared.
shows interest and stuff too, right?
Yeah, 100%. You want to show up prepared. You want to show up like you actually and show that you care. You want, and it's almost, it doesn't need to be overt. It doesn't need to be so clear. Sometimes it could be subtle, and the people will know like, oh, this person has done their homework, and they respect you more because you
I
didn't
love
come
that.
like, oh, tell me about what you do, this and that. Like those are quite great. Those are okay questions.
Right.
But the deeper questions would be like, hey, I saw you left this industry and you went to the White House.
Exactly.
What
Yeah.
made you what made you leave, tech industry to go into the public sector?
Yes, because
That's
there's
a great
always a
question.
story behind it, a personal
Mhm.
one at that too. And yours
Exactly.
is, yeah, and yours is very personal too, because it's like you're a Christian, your relationship with God, it would compromise who you are. And then it took you onto this journey. But I think
Yeah,
with the right mentors at hand, they also helped guide you, which is really
exactly.
good. That's pretty amazing. People are gonna be like, whoa, you said no to the CIA. Like, what? So now, so now we
Yeah.
understand the story. Let me ask you this. What does your family think, you being a first generation American, and being tricultural really, because because your parents are Costa Rican and Venezuelan,
Yeah.
and you're American. What's that like? What do they think about all of this and your come up, so to speak?
It's so funny. I almost value their come up more because I'm standing on their shoulders.
I love that.
So
Love
I tell my dad and my mom more this every day because I'm seeing it as I get older. Like I can't imagine leaving my home country at my early 20s and just starting over with $1,800 in my pocket. No documents, no nothing, just like figuring it out.
Yeah,
Um, like if you look at it through that lens, I had it very easy. I had a lot of privilege. Um, but I also don't take that privilege for granted. I
right.
also I applied myself in as many opportunities as I could that make sense to me. If I cared about it, if I was passionate about it, I would exploit that opportunity as much as I can.
Mhm.
And part of that is because my parents taught me to do that. I
Right,
think part of it is also my own ambition. That's what
right,
maybe when I get that from my parents, I also get that it's part of my personality.
right.
And you realize that not everyone's like that. Some people, they get handed everything and they don't feel the need to go like challenge themselves and push the boundary further.
Yeah,
And I've seen other people who had less than me, much less than me, go further in life in terms of career aspirations and like family welfare and success and wealth. So it depends on, I really think it depends on how much you're willing to dream and sacrifice. Um, I had some big dreams from when I was in college that I would work in some sort of capacity that's not it's not everyone has access to, boardrooms that not everyone would be in,
Right.
and like working on special projects that only select few are trusted with. And what I see now is at my time at Adobe, my time here at Oracle, I'm working on projects that require a specialized skill set and that require a lot of responsibility. Like I'm as a social media manager, I'm dealing with accounts that can make or break a PR image. Like if something gets out
Exactly.
on these accounts that's not on brand, or God forbid something it's not it was by accident or whatever, that takes a lot of responsibility. It's a lot. There's a lot of rules in one social media role, and so in some ways I say that because I'm already living the life that I wanted, but I'm also I have still bigger dreams and aspirations to attain,
Right.
and I made a lot of sacrifices also to get there. I think one example, one story is like there are some of my friends and while I was in college who we kind of grew up in high school together. College maybe wasn't their thing, which is fine. It's not for
Right.
everybody,
Mm-hmm.
but they started working like full-time jobs instead of going to college, which teach his own. That's fine,
Right.
but I see them now. They're kind of starting out where I'm already past that. If that makes any
Right.
sense.
It makes
So
sense.
yeah, like they're either thinking about going back to college or they are taking jobs that I've took when I was in college because they were internships or something,
Right.
but because they're trying to change their career, they're trying to change their, which is good. I'm encouraging that. But
Yeah.
do you see that there's a difference in, if you have the means, you could have gone to college when you were younger instead of
Right.
paying you could have basically made less money in the past when in college, because I was working part-time jobs. I wasn't making much money. My focus was school. But for
Right.
other people, it's like they can't sacrifice that. They rather just make the money immediately. So you got to make some short-term sacrifices for a long-term gain in the future.
Exactly. That's so good. Short-term sacrifices for long-term gain. And I think with COVID, some of us work from home remotely. That's a privilege. So
Mhm.
some of your friends and some people out there are like, wait a second, I need to take a step back and really think about, oh, maybe I should go back to school and do these things. So that in itself is a privilege as well. And everyone
Yeah,
has their own race to run, their own path. You took,
exactly.
yeah. But you guys are still friends, which is good. It's
Oh
always
yeah, yeah,
good
and
to have friends.
and the thing is, I don't want to make a generalization because
Right.
people can't afford to go to college. They don't have. I had the privilege of my parents having Florida prepaid, where they've been saving up for college since the day before I was born.
Right.
So not everyone has that luxury or that privilege. Like it was a sacrifice for my parents too, but they I appreciate them that they put college as a priority for us from the very beginning and kind of instilled in us like, hey, we're already paying for this, so you should have in your mind that you're going to be going to a four-year university when you graduate high school, and you're going to graduate from a four-year university. So I
Yeah.
respect that from my parents. They were
Yeah.
already setting expectations for better or for worse. Like I think I'm better because of it. So
I love that. Yeah.
yeah.
And my family did the same thing too. You're going to college. That was it. That was it. I feel you with my parents sacrificed a lot too. So I totally feel you with that. And you moved across the country. And I think you grow too as an individual. When you were in the White House, when you were working there, did you get to meet the president or anyone or
No,
no?
no, no, I didn't get to meet the president, and I didn't work at the White
Okay.
House. I worked like 4 blocks from the White House, near it actually. But I had friends that worked in the White House, and they would give me tours and stuff, and we would go there for work sometimes. Like our nonprofit would um, work with the Obama administration at the time, and we would work with them for Latino initiatives, at the gender
Right.
initiatives, all that stuff. Yeah.
Yes, yes, that's still awesome. I actually saw Oracle's page, the social media page on LinkedIn. And if you guys get to check it out, you had like over 14,000 views. And I'm like, go Jose, this is amazing. So God really did have like this awesome plan for you, like
Yeah.
saying no to the CIA, but bringing it to the right person to speak to. All of that is just amazing.
Yes.
Um, so if someone wants to get into tech or like Adobe or Oracle or what have you, or even get into social media marketing or what have you, what's one of the things you would tell them to start off with?
I would say I think the first question to ask yourself is why you want to go into tech. That's the first question. Do some deep introspection and figure out, am I doing this because it looks cool? Am I doing this because other people have asked me to and that's their expectations on me? Or am I doing this because I really want to be there? It's the right industry for me. And um, the good thing about tech is that it's much wider in terms of career opportunities than most people think. They think it's just for, I think most people think it's just for software developers
No,
and nerds and that stuff. And it's like it's more than that. It's there's so much to do in tech. There's
so much.
sales, there's marketing, there's PR, there's legal, there's for some campuses are so big they have their own nurses on staff. You
Right.
know,
There's
so
telehealth. I'm in telehealth. Yeah.
yeah, tell it exactly. So
Mhm.
I would say first do some introspection. Why do you want to do this? And if you think the intentions are right for you, you're not doing this for the wrong reasons, then 100% commit to it. And by committing to it, you are interviewing people who have successful tech careers, and at least 5 to 10 years in. You're rebranding yourself as best as you can to be a um, tech XYZ. So if it's your marketing, you're a tech marketer. If you're in sales, you're an aspiring sales professional or a BDR, whatever it is. And you're understanding the business, the landscape. Tech is very, like I said, very wide. So just because it's in tech, it could
Yeah.
be financial tech. And so you have to understand how regulated the financial industry is. It could be medical device tech, which you just have to understand how regulated the medical device industry is.
Yeah. What's BDR, by the way?
BDR is a business development representative. It's like a starting position for sales.
Okay.
And most sales folks who are starting in tech start kind of around BDR.
Okay. And rebranding yourself. Can you give a quick example of rebranding yourself?
Yeah. So when I was working with Miri on this, she kind of we went through my resume, completely revamped it. She gave me an example of a good one. I think it was hers actually, and she's like, take this and start typing away, and we'll work on it together. We had like probably 15 to 20 different revisions on it. I'm still editing it today. Like it doesn't stop.
Right.
What else? So we redid my resume. LinkedIn completely overhauled. We made sure that we had a list of companies that I wanted to apply for. We made sure that I was looking every day. I had my alerts, and essentially basically like just did my research and always looked to see what roles were open. I interviewed, network with, it goes back to networking too. Like you have to do informational interviews. Do an informational interview with no strings attached in terms of looking for a job. Like you can say that you are looking for a job, but you can just say, hey, this is just an informational conversation. It's not to interview for anything, but it's to get your name out. It's one thing that the policy advisor to the head of FEMA, he taught me that. He's like, when he was looking, he went from like the private business world to the public sector he wanted to work on the Hill. Right. And so he kind of had like an echo chamber approach where he would go and he would calculate how many cups of coffee he needs to do for the next 6 months and take people out to speak to them so that he can get his name around the city, around DC. Yeah. And so people know, like, oh, when they hear that name, they're like, oh, I recognize that name. I know who that's from. And it becomes more familiar that this person is looking for a great job on the Hill, on Capitol Hill. I think that same approach can apply to any industry, not just tech. So
exactly.
You want your network.
Yeah, you want to make sure your reputation is a good one.
Exactly.
Word gets around. What's next for you? I know you have your own consulting business. What's next for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. Truthfully, right now, I'm just focused on, my fiance and we're about to get married.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. At the time of this recording, it'd be like 3 months from now. Awesome. And so truthfully, I'm in a place in my career where I'm kind of sticking down to what I have right now for the long haul. And I'm focusing more and this is going to sound like anti-career advice, but I'm focusing more on life outside of work than I am at work right now.
So
And
good.
so what's next for me is focusing on enjoying my marriage and enjoying like being newlyweds and just being like figuring that out and being a family. That's what I'm most concerned about right now. I think with you spoke about the pandemic and
Yeah.
the great resignation and how people has their eyes have opened up to like the fragility of life and how it
Yeah.
can just be so fleeting, and you have to ask yourself tough questions like, am I living the life, not just forget work, like
Get
am I
right.
living the life that I want to be living? And if there's anything that taught me that, I kind of already knew this before the pandemic, but it reinforced it during the pandemic, is
Yeah.
um, you know, as much as it hurts to say this, if you were to drop dead,
Mm-hmm.
the company that you're working at would replace you in
Yes.
maybe 2 weeks.
You are replaceable.
You are
People
replaceable.
this needs to resonate.
Yes.
Your job is not your life.
Exactly.
They will
And
get
so
rid of you in a heartbeat.
I know, and
You're replaceable.
I
Sure.
don't think all companies are like that in the sense they're quick to get rid of you. I
No.
don't, maybe unless you deserve it, you probably won't get fired easily. And
Right.
it depends on the company too, the company culture.
Right. Right.
But if something were to seriously happen to you where you couldn't work and they needed someone to fill the role, they're gonna look out for their business and they're gonna fill the role.
Exactly.
It's nothing personal. It's kind of like how the world works. And once you realize that, you're okay. You make less apologies for focusing on yourself and your well-being.
Yeah.
And even financially, you look for other ways to make money. And just so you don't have one source of income, single source of income, you
Right.
look for ways to invest, to start your own business. You look out in a deeper way, and not in a superficial way or like in a spiteful or bitter way, but you look out in a morally right way, a good way, to look out for yourself, look out for your own well-being, look out for you and your family first, and what you and your family care about.
Yeah.
And to answer your question, Trish, that's where I am in my life right now. It's not
Yeah.
so much of like, oh, I need to get this job and I
No.
want to make this much money. Like we do have, as a family, my fiance and I, we do have goals for the year, how much we want to make and where we want to go, etc. But I think at a deeper level, we're not so tied to
Right.
work. We're tied to the life that we
Good.
want for ourselves. And I think that's a big revelation that most people need to have, because they think that if they get the right job, they'll be happy. But I've been there before. I had a great job with a great team,
Right.
great friends, a great circle around me, and I was still depressed because I felt like either I was alone or I got everything I wanted and it wasn't as nice as I thought it would be. There's different reasons for that. And you had to find and define that for yourself, what that happiness looks like, what that joy looks like for you,
Yeah.
that's outside of circumstantial, fleeting opportunities, work opportunities, money, whatever it is. It has to be bigger than you and
Absolutely. There has to
patients.
be a purpose for your life, and it's not just about work. I think you mentioned a really great point, Jose, that the pandemic really
Mhm.
placed the mirror in front of people's faces to be like, okay, what's important for you?
Mhm.
Family, finding a husband, a wife, a partner, a relationship, having babies, having children. Do I want
Right.
to live where I'm living? Do I want to be closer to family? And I
Mhm.
think you hit the nail on the head where you want to flourish with your fiance and
Yeah.
focus on your marriage and your future. I think a lot of people are in that boat. So I'm so like appreciative for you saying that. It's so
Thank
real.
you.
So
Thank you.
real.
Appreciate
Yeah, I
that,
want to
Trish.
thank you so much. Thanks so
Mhm.
much, Jose, for coming on.
Absolutely.
I appreciate you. And I can give everyone Jose's contact information. You're a wealth of information and full of surprises. And I'm so happy for you and your
Thank you so
future.
much. Thank
Good
you. And
thing.
thank you, Trish, for bringing me on. It's a pleasure to be here speaking to you. And I hope that the folks who are listening today are encouraged to know that, like, just because you're steering the ship one way, you can 100% turn around, you can grow, you can learn new things. Um, and I just don't think people need to give up on themselves so soon. They can 100% steer the ship in a completely different direction if it's not where they want to be heading, and align it to what their true goals and aspirations are, and that are really deep seated in the heart. So I hope
Yeah.
that people take that to heart.
I love that. And then do it with joy. Make sure you
Do it
feel
with
good
joy.
about it, Make
Exactly.
sure you feel real good and it gives you like invigoration and to just keep going.
Yes. Yes.
Thanks again. Full of wisdom. I so appreciate you coming on. Everyone, thanks for listening. My name is Dr. Trish Rampersad, the Core Behavioral Psychologist, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.